Welcome to High Cap Fridays, where information becomes action and action expands capacity. Knowing this stuff is great, but putting it into practice, that's what actually changes things. I'm Michelle Grosser, trial attorney turned nervous system strategist, and every Friday here on High Capacity, I'm going to give you one nervous system tool and one high cap move to take into the week ahead. Something really short, really practical, and designed to be acted on. Let's jump in. Hey, it's Michelle here. So glad you're with us today on this High Cap Friday. We're going to talk about mornings. Everyone and their mom, has an opinion about what a morning routine should look like, what needs to be in a morning routine, that you should wake up at 2 a.m. to make sure that you have time to yourself before your kids wake up at the crack of dawn. And I think, joking aside, there is some intention behind how we start our day that can really make a difference. So I'm not going to tell you to wake up earlier, but I am going to tell you that I used to start my mornings whenever my kids woke up, however my kids woke up, which meant that I woke up really reactive. I was already responding to everyone else's needs before I'd even, taken my own breath. I was making, breakfast and changing diapers and packing backpacks and shoes and cold coffee. And, by 7, 8 a.m., I was already exhausted and I already felt behind and I was already running on whatever stress hormones my body had decided to produce on my behalf. And that was that, right? The day was started and I was just along for the ride. But a lot of things shifted when I started understanding that the way I started my morning really set my nervous system's baseline for the entire day. And I don't mean that as an overstatement. I don't mean it metaphorically. I mean it literally, like neurologically. There's a difference in my nervous system in how I start my day. The first 30 to 60 minutes of your day really determines, first of all, your cortisol curve. It determines the autonomic tone of the day, your default stress response that you're going to be operating from for the rest of your waking hours. And for a long time, I was handing that window of that first 30 to 60 minutes of the day over to chance, mostly chaos, whatever just happened during that time, I was dealing with it. So we're going to talk about morning routines today, not the way I think they're usually talked about. I'm not giving you any productivity hacks or, you don't have to wake up super early, not any of that, but I'm going to give it to you as a nervous system strategy. So we're going to touch both on physical capacity today and energetic capacity, how you restore and sustain energy, and stress capacity, which is how much your system can handle before tipping over into our capacity patterns. So here's a little bit of the neuroscience that makes mornings just so important. They really do. They just matter so much. So we know our body follows a circadian rhythm, right? We all have this internal clock. It regulates our cortisol and melatonin and our core temperature and our alertness and our energy levels, all those things across a 24-hour cycle. So our cortisol naturally peaks in the first 30 to 45 minutes after we wake up, right? That's called our cortisol awakening response. It's the reason why we come to alertness, right? Why we come to consciousness after sleeping. So its job is to give us the energy that we're going to need to engage with the day. It's also the most plastic window of the day. I'm talking about neuroplasticity, okay? This is the time of day when your brain is most open to setting new patterns and anchoring intentions and establishing the emotional tone that you're going to carry forward. So when you do what you do in this window, precious little window of time in the morning is what's telling your nervous system what kind of day it's preparing for. So if your first input is your email or the news or texts or whatever it is, your nervous system is going to orient toward being stimulated and comparison and reactivity and fear and stress and all of these things, right? If the first input of your day is just noise and demands and rushing and all the things that have to get done, your nervous system actually orients toward that urgency and survival mode. It's the first input. Now, on the flip side, if we choose to have our first input of the day as light and breath and intention and some quiet and stillness, our system is going to orient towards regulation. It's going to orient towards higher capacity because you're essentially programming your autonomic nervous system in that first 30 to 60 minutes of the day. So what does a nervous system informed morning actually look like? I'm going to give you some principles. I don't want to give you this rigid 10-step morning routine because I think that's part of what dysregulates people, especially if you're an architect. If you run the architect capacity pattern in particular, you can turn a morning routine into a pressure cooker. So if it has to happen exactly a certain way or your day is ruined, that is not supportive and that's not going to be regulating. The routine has to become supportive, not another stressor, okay? So here are the principles I'm going to give you. I would encourage and invite you to protect the first few minutes of your day from any external input. Okay, so that means the phone stays away, the news has to wait, the email has to wait, and can you give yourself some version of a soft landing into the day? Okay, it doesn't even have to be long. Can you do 5 or 10 minutes from consciousness to when you pick up your phone? Can you have a slow first cup of coffee or tea or drink some water? Can you take a few deep breaths before your feet just hit the floor running? The point is that I want you to let your nervous system wake up before the whole world is chiming in and getting to it, okay? So that's the first principle. The second thing is natural light. Natural light in your eyeballs in the first 30 to 45 minutes after waking up, guys. It's one of the most powerful things you can do for your circadian rhythm, for your cortisol, ultimately for your sleep the following night. I don't care how you get it. Sit by a window, open a window, sit on your front porch, go outside, go for a walk. Even on a cloudy day, outdoor light is so much brighter than indoor light, and it really anchors your body's internal clock in a way that nothing else does. So that's a huge one. And if you can combine that with movement, chef's kiss, okay? Your body, allowing yourself to move your body before you start asking your brain to do all these hard things all day long will be a game changer. Even 10 minutes, you guys. Go walk around the block. Leave your sunglasses at home. Do some gentle stretching outside. Sit in the grass and do some stretching in the morning. Movement, gentle movement in the morning. We know it activates your lymphatic system. It brings blood flow to the brain. It supports your parasympathetic tone, your body's calming mechanism. It lets you think clearly and respond rather than reacting. You don't need a full workout, right? If you can get one in, go for it. But you need a way to move your body and let your body know it's alive and it's safe. Okay? 2 more things. Another principle is that I'm not the biggest to-do list person, okay? Can you set a few intentions that are actually going to move the needle today, okay? What do you want to carry into today? Not all 30 things written down that you keep bringing over from yesterday and the day before and the day before that you feel like you need to accomplish, and then you don't get through your whole list and you feel crappy at the end of the day. We're not doing that. But who do you want to be in the hard moments today, right? What's going to matter most today? What's the thing that's got to get done today? This is the difference, you guys, between starting the day in just reaction mode to starting the day with intention and purpose. Nail it down, write it down, okay? What do you want to carry in today? And what's the one thing that's got to get done that's moving the needle? And then the last thing I'm going to say, just because it's true, I don't always follow this, but I often do, is that I try to delay my morning caffeine, okay? And I know. Here's why it matters. When we drink coffee before our cortisol awakening response has peaked, it blunts the natural cortisol rise in our body that our body's actually trying to produce, okay? And then what happens is that we crash when our cortisol drops. And what do? It's a cycle, right? We just reach for more caffeine and we ride that blood sugar roller coaster all day. Waiting just an hour, hour and a half in the morning and eating something with protein first before we have a cup of coffee, it lets your natural cortisol peak do its thing. And then the coffee actually hits better afterward and you don't get those afternoon crashes, okay? You haven't wrecked your cortisol levels, your blood sugar levels, all of that. So I wake up, some mornings I do have coffee right away, I'm not going to lie, but most mornings, especially if I'm waking up and already feeling a little bit activated or anxious, I'll just have either herbal tea or I'll just chug a glass of water and then I'll move my body. And then when I make breakfast after, then I'll have a cup of coffee as I sit down with my breakfast. Okay. Now, what happens when you have all these great intentions and the morning just doesn't go like you thought it would? Right? Because that's real life. Sometimes, kids are sick through the night or they're sick in the morning or you're traveling or you overslept or like whatever it is. Life is life. The goal is not to have this perfectly rigid morning routine that you just execute like a ninja every morning. The goal is to have a nervous system that has enough of a default toward regulation, right? That even if you can't get through these things in the morning, even on the days when I don't move my body or I do have caffeine first or I do pick up my phone earlier than I'd prefer to, that my nervous system can handle it and it doesn't derail my whole day, right? So if I'm consistent enough on most of these over time, that becomes the default. So it's not through getting it perfect every day, but I return to it more often than not, right? I come back to it. If I skip a day, I don't skip two. And then every morning I give my nervous system a regulated starting point, and it really helps to make that baseline a little easier to return to. So you don't have to use this as a checklist, these principles. You don't have to sit down and take notes and do all of these starting tomorrow. But maybe choose one, right? Maybe you're going to leave your phone somewhere else in another room for the first 30 minutes of the day when you wake up. Maybe you're going to try to get outside this week in the morning a few days. Maybe you're going to try to move your body, right? Even if it's not this big, intense workout, it doesn't have to be. Can you just go take a walk around the block? Can you, do some stretching on the floor, or go on YouTube and find a Pilates video or something and move your body? Or maybe you're going to experiment with caffeine. What happens if you do wait an hour before having your cup of coffee instead of having it first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, right? And just notice how your nervous system seems to respond to that, right? What happens to your anxiety? What happens to your mood? What happens to your energy levels? And then proceed accordingly, because your body will tell you what it loves and what helps it to feel supportive. And then just do more of that, right? That's the whole thing. All right. So grateful y'all were here today, believing this was helpful. I love y'all so much. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for listening today. If you haven't taken the What's Your Capacity Pattern quiz yet, it tells you which of the 5 capacity patterns is driving your exhaustion, your reactions, and your stress. So you know exactly where to focus your energy first. It's free. It takes 2 or 3 minutes. The link is in the show notes. And then come back on Tuesday for a full episode where we go deeper on the nervous system science and the tools behind everything we've been building. I'll see you on Tuesday.